It was a cold, windy night on a lonely highway outside Texas. The sky was dark, and the road stretched endlessly under the dim glow of streetlights. James Carter, a 42-year-old biker, rode his black motorcycle through the quiet night. He wore a worn leather jacket, heavy boots, and a tired expression. To most people, James looked tough, even intimidating. But deep inside, he carried a heavy sadness. Years ago, James had lost his wife and newborn daughter in a tragic car accident. Since that day, his life had never been the same. Riding his motorcycle at night was the only thing that helped him escape the painful memories. The wind roared in his ears as he sped down the highway. Suddenly, something unusual caught his attention, a faint sound. At first, he thought it was just the wind, but then he heard it again, a soft cry. James slowed his motorcycle and looked around. The highway was empty. No cars, no people, nothing but darkness. Then he saw it. On the side of the road, near a broken guardrail, sat a small bundle wrapped in a thin blanket. His heart began to pound. He quickly stopped his motorcycle and walked toward the bundle, his boots crunching against the gravel. The crying grew louder. With trembling hands, James knelt down and gently pulled back the blanket. His breath froze. Inside was a tiny baby girl, no more than a few months old. Oh. Her cheeks were red from the cold, and her small hands shook as she cried helplessly. "Oh my God," James whispered. The baby looked up at him with wide, frightened eyes. For a moment, time seemed to stand still. Memories of his own daughter flooded his mind. The tiny fingers, the soft cries, the warmth he had lost forever. James felt his chest tighten. Without hesitation, he carefully picked up the baby and held her close to his body, trying to keep her warm. "It's okay, little one," he said softly. "I've got you now." He removed his leather jacket and wrapped it around the baby, shielding her from the freezing wind. Then he pulled out his phone and dialed 911. Within minutes, flashing lights appeared in the distance. Police cars and an ambulance rushed toward the scene. Paramedics quickly examined the baby. "She's cold but stable," one medic said. "You found her just in time." James felt a wave of relief wash over him. A police officer approached him. Sir, do you know anything about this child?" the officer asked. James shook his head. No," he replied quietly. "I just heard her crying and stopped." The officer nodded, writing notes on a clipboard. "You probably saved her life tonight." Those words hit James harder than he expected. Saved her life. For years, he had blamed himself for not being able to save his own family. The guilt had haunted him every day. But tonight, for the first time in a long time, he felt something different. Hope. As the ambulance prepared to leave, the baby suddenly stopped crying. Her tiny fingers reached out and grabbed James's rough hand. He froze. The small touch felt powerful, almost magical. A tear rolled down his cheek. "Take care of her," he whispered to the paramedics. Days passed, but James couldn't forget the baby. Her face stayed in his mind. Her cry echoed in his heart. One evening, while sitting alone in his small apartment, he turned on the television. A news report appeared on the screen. "R searching for the parents of an abandoned baby found on Highway 47 last week," the reporter said. Authorities are now looking for a permanent guardian if no family members are located. James stared at the screen, his heart beating faster. He knew what he had to do. The next morning, he walked into the local child services office. The receptionist looked surprised to see a tall biker standing at the desk. "How can we help you?" she asked. James took a deep breath. "I want to adopt the baby," he said. The room fell silent. Over the following weeks, social workers carefully reviewed his background. They visited his home, checked his records, and asked many questions. James cooperated with everything. He cleaned his apartment, bought baby supplies, and even painted a small bedroom soft pink. For the first time in years, his home felt alive again. Finally, one sunny afternoon, he received the call. "You've been approved," the social worker said warmly. "You can take her home today." James's hands trembled as he arrived at the foster center. A nurse gently placed the baby into his arms. The little girl looked up at him, calm, safe, and warm. In that moment, James felt something he hadn't felt in years, peace. He smiled softly and whispered, "Welcome home, Emma." As he carried her outside, the sun shone brightly over the city. The road ahead was still long, but this time he wasn't riding alone. The lonely biker who once lived in darkness had found a new purpose. And the baby who had been abandoned on a cold highway had found a father. Sometimes the smallest cry can lead to the biggest miracle, like